Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. We're here with John Petrolino, which we're going to get to in just a second. But first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to all the folks at Right to Bear and Palmetto State Armory for putting us up here. And I want to give a huge shout out to all the guys from Forge Relations who've been just absolutely kicking ass and making everything look good. Mr. Petrolino, how
Well,
are you, sir?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me. This is a pleasure.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting conversation because for those of you who don't know, John and I have been trading messages back and forth. He's out in New Jersey. You've been out there are you lifelong New Jersey guy?
Yeah.
Born and raised.
Born and raised, went to school elsewhere, but then came
Came
back.
back home.
I
How
went
long
to
you been
school.
practicing law?
I'm not practicing law.
You're not.
I am not. I'm
No.
just a journalist.
You're a journalist out there. I thought you were practicing law too.
Nope, not practicing the law, just writing about it.
Well, unfortunately, out there in New Jersey, you guys are losing your mind.
They are losing their
They
mind.
are losing their mind.
Yep.
Let's first of all talk about who you writing for right now.
So I'm a freelance guy, so I cover a lot of different topics, but primarily I put my content out at Bearing Arms. That's most of the content that you and I talk about.
Cam and
Yep,
Cam and Company
yep.
did great work.
So
great
Bearing
work.
Arms, Ammo Land, Truth About Guns, News 2A. That's a good one. News 2A, those are guys from New Jersey that are up and coming. They got mad and they are like, we're going to do
They're
something.
really hitting it hard.
And then, yeah, ththey've got a great platform. So news2a.com and Shooting News Weekly. And
So
whoever
you're
will
just writing
have,
for everybody, man.
whoever will have me.
That's
I'm
awesome.
happy. Everyone's my friend.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with a very bold statement.
Sure.
And I'm going to ask you if you agree with it or not.
Okay.
Gun control in its formation was based on racism.
I agree.
Okay. Gun control in the state of New Jersey still has elements of racism in
It
it.
seems that way.
Okay. Let's talk about that because that's what got me interested in talking to you. You've done some articles about what was going on. Now, is this on concealed carry license or is this on a license to purchase?
Nope, this is permit to carry. Yep.
Permit to
So
carry.
they call our concealed carry licenses are called permits to carry in New Jersey.
Okay.
Potato, right? And this is all having to do with data that the Attorney General ordered to be aggregated and published, which I don't know why. I honestly don't know why he did this because he gave us a gift.
Did he seem to think that they were going to somehow or another, through their transparency, show that the state of New Jersey was treating everyone equally? Because it doesn't appear that the data backs that up.
Well, so interestingly enough, and it's like they put out the order a couple of years ago, and the data came out, I want to say, in April, March, or something like that, maybe May. By May, we're talking about this. And you know a lot about law across the country, but there's one subjective standard in New Jersey that's still being used, and it's we're not going to give you your permit if it's not in the interest of public health.
You don't have the temperament and things like that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's the word that they use,
Which
the temperament.
Actually, the exact reason that Bruin was decided to get rid of that crap.
Sure. And, you know, everybody listening in, footnote number 9, blah, 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 is very specific. It says the standards need to be narrow. They need to be objective.
They need to be objective.
And not subjective, like, well, what's Bill's temperament?
Right.
Well, it depends on
the day of the week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the first layer of the onion that we came to was more than 50% of the denials for permits to carry in New Jersey were under this subjective standard.
Okay, so better than 1 out of 2 of people who are getting rejected for these permits are being rejected on a subjective gray area. How do you feel about this person?
Bingo.
Okay. Because the objective criteria, like you run a background check, oh, he's a convicted felon. Oh, you run a background, oh, he's been convicted of domestic violence. Those are objective criteria. We can all agree that as the law sits currently. But why wasn't that taken out of that law when Bruin came down?
When New Jersey had their Bruin response law done in 2022, it was signed right before Christmas. The original standard was not in the interest of public health and safety, welfare, right?
Right.
The legislature added and lacks the proper temperament. So not only
so
was
their Bruin response bill actually put the stuff that Bruin said don't be in your statute back into the statute?
A little bit more.
Oh,
they added it. So there was already the subjective standard, which Evan Knapp, and I know you're probably familiar with his work.
Yeah, he does good work.
The weasel clause that he likes to call it is the subjective standard that they weasel out of getting people their permits. And this was going back to FID cards, permits to purchase and permits to carry. They added that temperament language that you used
Yeah.
when they did the Bruin response law. So this has
And, you
been
know,
going
here's
on.
the offensive thing. Think about a state legislature that's sponsoring a bill called the Bruin Response Bill.
Well, I don't
Think
know
about
what
that.
I don't know what they called it, so I'm calling it a
Well, they were
Bruin. Yeah,
openly calling it that.
So
They were openly calling it that.
exactly. And it is. We called it the carry killer. You know, that's probably more appropriate because
Yeah.
that added up all those sensitive locations. So that was the first layer of the onion. The second layer of the onion was, wait a second, I'm not seeing the race data in what I'm looking at.
So the original data you get did not break it down by race?
I'm going to say I didn't see it.
Okay,
And
we'll
then
go with that.
I'm gonna say other people that I spoke to, far smarter than me, also didn't see it.
Okay.
So I was compelled to file an Open Public Records Act request, which is the New Jersey FOIA. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So I said, Attorney General Platkin's office, where's this race data? And they gave me instructions on how to access the data, which with that information I was able to.
Because they had kind of hid it on their website, and unless you knew the parameters of how to search it out, there was no way of pulling it up, right?
It's not all that comprehensive either. So they were maybe they were playing a game, maybe they weren't. Hey, sometimes I have a bad day and I just can't, whatever.
Fair enough.
At that point is when we saw the race information. So off the top, more than double the rates of denial. So black citizens were being denied more than double whites for their permits to carry.
Okay. So you're telling me that if you're an African American in New Jersey, you're twice as likely to have your permit denied than if you look like you or me.
Correct.
Brutal.
Now, before we talk about the instances of criminal background and all that stuff, let's ignore some of this and we'll just look at that subjective standard, right?
Right.
2.5 times the rate. 2.5 times more likely to be denied if you're black over white.
On that one subjective
On
criteria.
that one subjective
so
criteria.
they're basically using this criteria to keep the African American population from arming and defending their lives.
I mean, I'm not going to say that myself, but it appears that way. The data is the data.
Right.
And
okay, so you be the objective guy and you
Yeah.
say that's the data, and I'll be the subjective guy and go, y'all see what's going on here? Right?
Exactly. So I went to the Attorney General and I said, hey, Matthew Blatkin.
Yeah.
I said, hey, let me get a comment on this. So I have his email address. I've got their press office, and their press office, these are great people. They've always been very wonderful to me. And I said, carbon copy to Platkin himself and the press office seeking comment on this scenario. Look, here's the data. Decline to comment. Okay, so they don't want to comment on it. So I waited about a month, and I think that's probably an appropriate amount of time. I filed 2 more Open Public Record Act requests. One was about extensive wait times, which that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
The other was on specifically racial bias. And I wanted to know what guidance the Attorney General has sent out to the issuing authorities, meaning the police chiefs and the people that are handling the permits.
Right? Yeah.
If there's been any guidance on racial bias and how to deal with the subjective standard, because as we know, that's an illegal subjective standard.
It's totally unlawful. What did you find when you went asking for that?
So I got a response back that there was 0 records. So the Attorney General sent out 0 guidance on dealing with any of these issues. So I went back and
Do you find that a little hard to believe? That because you told me that part of the Bruin response bill, this new subjective criteria was implemented into the law. It wasn't pre-existing, right?
Part of it, yeah.
Yeah. So we have a new component of the law, which has a lot of very vague and gray language, right? And do you find that hard to believe that the Attorney General didn't issue any type of guidance to the multitude of law enforcement agencies in New Jersey?
The guidance that they issued and the guidance that I was looking for was 2 different guidance. So there was some guidance on some of the permitting issues. Like basically the guidance was akin to what I like to say, the Supreme Court says that the peasants have to have their pitchforks, right? And that's what I like to say. So now they have to swallow that pill. So that was part of the guidance. The guidance I was looking for was very specific, narrow. are you looking into this racial bias since I notified your office that it exists?
Okay.
And what's telling about it is no, they don't care.
They don't care.
So, but how do I know they don't care? I wrote them an email and I said, hey, can I get a comment on why there's no guidance? And are you going to issue guidance? I think that guidance would be meaningful. And I think you would
Right.
agree.
I absolutely would.
They said we declined to comment.
They just don't want to talk about it.
They don't want to talk about it. And the issue continues, right? And, you know, I draw parallels. So I get this press release from the AG's office talking about systemic racism in the medical field,
Oh, okay.
medicine and access to care.
Okay.
So the Attorney General's very, very interested in this. There's people talking about the systemic racism in New Jersey. They're pointing it out. So I write to the Attorney General's office again. They said, well, you're very interested in the systemic racism that's in the medical field, but why are we ignoring the denial rates of blacks over whites for firearm related paperwork? Do you know what the Attorney General said?
I do not.
You're right. So this is what he said. The first thing they said was, John, when you reach out to the Attorney General office, stop carbon copying his personal work account. Just send it to this office. And then they said, we declined to comment.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
They
basically,
just don't want to give you the time of day, really.
and I think I got underneath the Attorney General's skin because I'm sending it to his personal work account. And he can't say that he doesn't know about this. I've
Sure.
been notifying them via,
You've been beating on this drum for months now.
yep, since like, you know, April, May of
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
So I'll play nice. I'm not going to carbon copy him anymore, but they
Okay.
can't say that he doesn't know.
Right.
Governor Murphy, I've reached out to his office, 3 of his press people, 3 times via email. Bupkis sent out a snail mail letter, you know, put a bunch of stamps on it because it was thick, sent that off to Trenton, and no response. Nothing. Zero. And
Are there any other African American centric groups that are pushing this issue, like, you know, African American Gun Owners Association, anything like that? That's like, hey, what's going on here? We need some answers.
I've had like 0 response from any of most of the bias groups that are out there. For example, Black Lives Matter does not care. Which
You
is,
want to know why?
yeah, oh, I know why.
Because Black lives don't matter to Black Lives Matter.
Al Sharpton does not care.
If
His
Black
group,
lives really mattered to Black Lives Mattered, they'd be in South Chicago every goddamn Monday saying we got to stop this insanity, because that is horrific. That's third world country crap that's going on
well,
there.
yeah, exactly. So this issue it's complex, and we could talk about that, and that could go on. We could talk about that for days.
Yeah, we could.
And whatever solutions we come up with, it doesn't matter. City of Chicago is a perfect example.
Yep.
Because they're not letting the adults, you know, take over. Like,
Yeah,
just
they're
let the adults take over. Maybe we'll see what happens, but that's not the case. ACLU, nothing.
Nothing.
NAACP, nothing. Zero zip zilch. I had some statisticians look at some of the data.
Yeah, what they find you, because
So-
you know, once you get the geeks involved and they start doing the number crunching, it can get
What-
pretty interesting.
One person that normalized the data for me found the rate to be 4.6 times more. It's even worse.
4 times as
Yes.
likely to be denied under that subjective criteria
Subjective criteria.
because you are African American.
Yep. And even when I looked at my raw numbers, which weren't normalized, from May until September, the rate went up. It didn't go down. That rate went up of the denials.
What are they doing under this subjective criteria to turn down so many African Americans?
I don't know. And like, one of the subjective cases that I was looking into is this guy named Leonard. And I wrote about him on Bearing Arms as well. And he was denied a permit to carry because of his driving record. He had a
I think I
CDL.
remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was me writing about that. I think you and I
But
talked
what was
about
on
this.
his driving record?
He lost his license, but
Okay.
there was no vehicular homicides. It was a CDL. He had a bad driving record, but,
Okay.
well, what the heck does that mean? You know who
Means
else
he's a
would?
crappy driver.
You know who would
That's
have a
what it
bad
means.
driving record? Helen Keller.
Yeah,
If I
yeah, she
had
would
to
have,
say,
yeah,
you probably
yeah.
have a
So would
pretty bad.
Gunlaw Jr.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, you know.
Yeah.
So he got denied, and Eventually, he got his permit through the state for armored car driver purposes.
Oh, that's nice of them.
And then they issued him a non-restricted permit through the state because he had that through the state.
But under this subjective criteria, what do you think these police agencies are actually examining and looking into? Or are they literally just, I don't feel like issuing this way? I mean, are they going through these people's social media profiles and seeing, like, are these people out there screaming for the overthrow of the United States government? Or,
One of the issuing authorities that I was hammering, because I wrote out letters, snail mail, to the mayors and to the police chiefs of every single jurisdiction in New Jersey that used the subjective criteria against issuing permits to carry. It was like over 100 letters. There was a ton of letters, and I got minimal responses. But of the responses I got, one issuing authority in particular, I just kept drilling. I said, well, what is the standard? He says, well, it's not in the interest of public health, whatever. And they kept citing back to me statute. They actually were citing back to me old
the old
statute,
stuff, yeah.
which is funny. I was like, by the way, this is the new statute, so you can update your records. And then by the time we got done with our whole entire thread, they said, well, it's impossible for us to tell you because there's no catch-all for it because it's too many things to define it. You know, it's based on a subjective criteria. Well, bingo.
Yeah.
So it could be whatever.
By design.
People don't like hair like yours and mine.
Right.
I don't know. Could be whatever.
Well, they don't like what someone posted on social media. All right.
And that's a big one.
That's
and
a big one because
people...
there are some people who want to be really, really outspoken about their beliefs. Last time I checked, we got a First Amendment right to do that.
There's a guy in New Jersey, goes by the name Big Mo. Great guy, really nice dude. He gets denied his permit to carry because he was making inquiries on why it's taking so long to get his permit to carry. So he goes to, I don't know if he went to the mayor or the police chief or whatever. I think he might have went to the mayor. They ended up red flagging him.
For what?
They red flagged him because he asked questions.
Oh, so wanting to educate yourself is grounds to disarm a person.
And not only that, he was like, I think he was at the police station. They sent him home, and then they went back.
And they showed up, took all his guns from him. Oh, damn them!
So he was such a terror that they let him go on an ROI. You know, he was able to go, and now, you know, so there's case after case in New Jersey where issuing authorities are absolutely abusing the citizens, and I'm making it my purpose to uncover as much of that as possible. News 2A, and I mentioned them earlier, we're doing something called the infringement report, where we're getting involved on a journalistic level. So we're dealing with just the facts, Bill. I'm going to ask the questions, and we get the emails based on the FARS system, which is our electronic system. So it'll tell you when they applied, when did they pay for their permit. We'll get proof of receipt. When did their references, all 4 of their references, or however many references they need, 2 for some, 4 for the other, right? When all those came back in, and then we can look at the clock and say, okay, can we consider this application complete? Because everything's been paid for, everyone's responded. So for ID cards and pistol purchase permits, 30 days. Permits to carry, 90 days. We get past that 30 days, we're asking questions to the issuing authorities. Hey, can you help us out here? We're trying to understand. There's allegations that there's delays. So far we've done 2 jurisdictions, and the first jurisdiction we did, the guy got his permit issued within 12 hours of our report getting dropped.
Nice work.
And we went to the mayor. You know, we went to the mayor. We went to the police chief. They tangoed with us. They did answer questions. We gave them an opportunity to say their due, but the permits were issued the next day. The other instance that we had, 0 response. Police chief's not responding. Mayor's not responding. I'd say 1 business day. It was a Friday. By Monday, the things were being issued. So, you know, so we're having some limited success with, I don't want to say naming and shaming because it's not naming and shaming. I'm asking the questions. I want to know what the deal is.
Is there a lawsuit kicking around on any of this stuff right now?
Well, there should be a lawsuit, or not that I'm aware of. There's some partners that I want to get a little bit closer to and talk to about this, because my big concern is it's very, sunlight is the best disinfectant, but if we're dealing with something that's this sensitive, if it does turn into something that's litigious, we don't want our work to mire people's opportunities down the line. You know what I mean? So we are looking into finding partners that want to work with us that can do stuff on the arm, because these guys aren't getting paid for that work.
Wow.
And when I work
What a
for
mess.
News 2A, like, I'm working for the cause. When I'm writing for other places that I have a contract with, yeah, I'm a freelance writer. I get paid based on my contractual, agreements.
Yeah.
News 2A, these guys are doing this because they love the Second Amendment. They're not getting paid to do it. I'm not getting paid to do it. So we're doing it on
And how can the viewers get subscribed to News 2A? Where do they go?
news2a.com, and they're on Twitter or X. News 2A, I think, is News 2A team. But if you go to news2a.com, you can definitely find them that way. And if you can't, you reach out to me, john@thepenpatriot.com. I'm always looking for news tips. I'm always looking for stuff. My website's thepenpatriot.com as well. I'm on X, I'm on all that stuff, but if you got questions, email's the best way. But
all right. Well, when we started this interview, I said we're going to start with two premises. Number one, gun control in its origin is racist in nature. Agree or disagree?
I still agree.
Okay. Gun control in the state of New Jersey, still incredibly racist in nature?
It appears that way.
It does appear that way. Okay, one last time. How can everyone follow John Petrolino on all the various publications that you are contributing to?
Yep, just head over to thepenpatriot.com. There's a link tree there. You could subscribe to my newsletter. You could subscribe to my link tree. And again, if you strike out and you can't find my Instagram or any of that stuff, just email me. But there's links to all that on thepenpatriot.com.
All right, listen, he's John Petrolino. He's one of the most prolific authors we got in the Second Amendment sphere. You guys all need to check him out. Thank you so much for getting under some of these rocks and taking a look what's there. Thanks for being on the channel today, brother. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Bill. Thanks a lot.
Man. Thank you.
Why in the year 2024 should anybody even think about having self-defense protection? Because, 25 years ago, we would have never had this conversation. So what's different today?
Bill, we really saw a need a number of years ago when the volatility and divisiveness of our country started to change drastically. And we, by the way, are gun people protecting gun people. We come from a significant gun background.
Right to bear, that's right, legal protection for self-protection. Listen, good lawyers aren't cheap, cheap lawyers aren't good. You're not truly prepared unless you have right to bear back you. You will always get an attorney-answered hotline, so you will always have a confidential phone call. There are no cap limits for either civil or criminal defense. This covers all forms of self-defense. So from a fist to a firearm, from a fat lip to a dead body, you are covered, and you will have some of the nation's most passionate 2A attorneys in your corner fighting for you. And right now, if you visit my friends at protectwithbear.com and you use the promo code WGL, you will receive 10% off. Listen, you need to protect yourself so that you can protect them. Visit my good friends at protectwithbear.com.